Good evening. Welcome to I'mPossible conversation, the conversation where ordinary people share their extraordinary life journeys. Tonight, my guest is Vicky Luffy.
Hi,
Creativity
everybody.
leaks. Hi, Vicky. When I asked, tell me about yourself, and asked you some intro, you said creativity leaks into everything I do. It's in my bones. Sounds amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I guess I come from a very creative family as well, and we're all very, mum's into crafts, and cousins have gone on to do, they're in creative businesses as well. You know, one makes toy dolls, one does graphic design. My dad's a musician, and all sorts of things, and it just. I guess it is in my blood. It's in my bones. It's just sort of leaks into everything I do, really. Even when I'm doing technical things for people, like updating their websites or, explaining SEO to them or whatever it is I'm doing. It's all done in a sort of creative, kind of non-technical way. So yeah, I was. It was. That's basically it. Yeah, it was great to sort of to come up with that after our last chat together. I really, it made me really realize just how creative I was. To be honest, for me, I'm just me, and I don't know any different. But our last conversation made me realize just how creative I was, I guess.
Yeah, tell me about the flowers.
Yeah,
because you have the flower shop, don't you?
Sure. Yeah.
I haven't met anyone who had a flower shop before.
Well, I had a retail flower shop for years, and I'm a specialist wedding florist now. I run a couple of businesses, but basically 10 years ago, just I left my job in the IT department of a Northern Rock bank to become my own florist. In fact, I'd been running my florist business for 6 months before I left Northern Rock and took my redundancy. But it came a point back in 2010 where I just, I desperately needed to do something more creative. I just hit the point where I thought I can't be writing systems documents for the rest of my life. And it doesn't, exactly set my soul on fire. And I needed to do something more creative and kind of good for the soul. And that was when I sort of looked back at what the things that I wanted to do when I was younger, when I was a little girl. And one of those things was floristry. And I basically, I took it from there. I approached the local college. I started doing courses. I started doing work experience at a local flower shop. I had a stall at Tynemouth markets, and it just sort of flew from there, really. And I'm pleased to say I'm still here 10 years later. I absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm. Do people say, I love that flower and this flower and that flower? Do you think the flowers have personality, and then the people who loves that type of flower match their personality matches or not?
Oh, it's a very clever question. I've never noticed that. To be honest, I think there is a very sort of a generational divide, perhaps. There's certain, like older generations carry meanings with flowers, because that's just how it was back then. So they would never have lilies in a gift bouquet for something like that, because they see it as a funeral flower, and things like that. But personalities, perhaps not so much. I think each flower has its own personality, and I don't mean each flower type. I mean each particular flower. And I think that's one of the beauties of what I do is that you could buy a packet of 20 roses from a wholesaler, but each one of them will be slightly different. And when I'm making someone's bridal bouquet, for example, I won't just choose any of those 20, I'll carefully look at it and think, okay, what suits where I'm putting it. You know, perhaps it bends slightly that way, or one's slightly fluffier, or one's just got a slightly different quirk than the other one. So yeah, it's not as simple as it looks, really. I think a lot of people sort of think, well, I've got 20 roses, then that'll do 20 of the same job. You know, I think each flower's got its own style, I guess.
Yeah. What's your favorite flower and why?
I think that tends to change. To be honest, that's my tastes change over time. I'm a real fan of kind of luxurious looking flowers, such as garden roses and orchids and things like that. I love a Cymbidium orchid. I love working when I get weddings where I get to work with kind of darker colours, you know, burgundies and aubergine kind of plummy tones, and I love to use like a dark red Cymbidium orchid or something like that. And but I love all sorts of flowers for all sorts of different reasons. But garden roses are beautiful. I don't know if you've ever heard of David Austin roses. I don't know if you do gardening or anything like that, but they're quite a popular sort of plant to buy. But obviously, I buy them as cut flowers. But I love them, absolutely love them. I've spent time a couple of times actually over in Aalsmeer in Holland with Parfum Flower Company, who actually are the distributors and of those. So that I've done a couple of workshops over there with them, and had the pleasure of working with them quite a lot. So I just love them. They're so sort of pretty and roughly and luxurious looking, and beautiful scent to them and everything. So yeah, there's no one answer to that question, sadly.
Yeah. Did you do your wedding bouquet yourself? Did you create it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, there's a lot of creative control going on there. Perhaps I should have relinquished that control a little bit, because it's hard work, you know. But I created everything myself. Pretty much. There was a couple of things I had help with, but I pretty much did everything myself. I chose them myself, which was really hard because as a florist, you come into contact with these sort of different flower types and combinations and stuff all the time. So you might look at something and think, that's it, that's what I'm going to have for mine, and then a few weeks later you see something else and you go, oh no, maybe I should have that instead. So there's no one answer to that, really. Even now, almost 7 years on, I still sort of think, oh well, what if I had this combination or that combination, or so yeah, I did my own. It was exhausting, actually, doing all, because I got all of the family in to do the to help set everything up the day before the wedding. We got married up at Kirkley Hall up in Ponteland, and they sort of chipped in, but it was nice to be able to relax the night before the wedding, definitely.
So that's the one side of your creativity, isn't it? The flower arrangements. What's the other sides?
Well, you can probably see behind me there are a number of musical instruments. I don't know if you can sort of see them there. There's a few more in the background as well, just off camera. So yeah, music's a huge part of it as well. So I love playing it. I love listening to it. I suppose that's something else that's in my bones as well. I've always been around it. Dad was a fiddle player, and he was a music teacher, and he was always in bands and stuff growing up. So I mostly play like Irish folk music, or folk music in general, and because that's kind of what that's what Dad did. That's just kind of what I've grown up with, and I just think with music is it's universal, isn't it? It speaks to everyone, and no matter who you are, you like some sort of music. You might not all agree on the same type of music, but music's just, whatever, is your jam, whether it be like rock and roll, or whether it be Irish folk, or, drum and bass, whatever it is for you, it's there's something about it kind of gets you, and it's able to sort of bring out all these emotions, isn't it? And so yeah, I mean, it was amazing. It brings people together. When Dad died almost a couple of years ago now, it was only then that I really realised the extent of his musical community, and as he was ill, and we knew he wasn't going to sort of be with us much longer, we set up a Facebook group, and just to keep people up to date, because there were so many people that knew him, family, his friends, our friends. It would be impossible to keep everyone up to date, so we actually set up a Facebook group, and I got to know a lot of his musical friends that way. And it really made me realize, like, the extent, his sort of musical circle was vast, and you can make lifelong friends with it as well. There's people who he used to be in bands with before I was born, and that they're still friends now. And so I think it's a really powerful thing, music, and you should, if you ever saw my iPod, you'd probably sort of think, my goodness, it can go from, Beyonce 1 minute to Tchaikovsky the next, and all sorts of things. So it's eclectic, I think, is the word. Definitely.
So what did you say you love folk music? So how often do you practice? Is it hard to learn to play?
Yeah, I guess it's, for years, I've played the flute since I was a teenager, but then life gets in the way. You grow up, and boys get in the way, and all sorts of things, and it just goes by the wayside. So over the years, I've very much gone in and out of it in terms of playing, but this ties back to when Dad was in hospices, and when he was ill, he was passing away, and that was the biggest kick up the bum I have ever had in terms of music. Sadly, I'll never get to play with him together, but if we only did that a few times in our lifetime, sadly. But it was the biggest kick up the backside that I ever had. It's like, no, I must do this. There's no excuses. I need to practice all the time. I need to learn. I need to, so I actually have lessons now with a friend of his called Bev Whelan, and she's my flute and whistle teacher now. And I've been having lessons with her for the past year. So actually about a year and a half now, I think, and that sort of keeps me on track. And it's really good. So it's nice to be able to see the improvement. And yeah, it is. I guess it takes. It's not that it's hard. I suppose it takes perseverance. I think I think a lot of us, especially creative souls, kind of get very impatient, and if you don't see a result straight away, if you don't automatically sound like some famous guitar player or flute player or whatever, then you get frustrated and put it down. But you've got to persevere with it and kind of build it's building blocks, really. You learn your scales at the beginning, and there's a reason for that, even though you might think, oh, but I'm sick of just learning scales, but there's a reason for that, and that's it's building blocks, and that makes other things that you learn in the future easy. So yeah, it's you have to stick with it, definitely. So I think that answers that question.
Mm-hmm. So, would you classify as playing flute as your hobby, or do you do other things
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah, it's very much a hobby. I don't ever plan on making a business out of that. I know I like to run lots of businesses, but that's one thing I would keep as a hobby. I think definitely. I don't see myself joining any bands.
Yeah, there are so many different bands you could join, but no plan.
No plan, and I don't plan on starting one. No, normally I am the first to sort of start things and join groups and create new groups and all that sort of thing. But I'm happy to just have this as a fun activity, and you kind of it helps you zone out as well. Running businesses is really stressful, and it's hard work, and also even the good times, which there are a lot of, when you're like really buzzing and you're enjoying stuff and you're really sort of going for it with your business, even that can be tiring, so just playing, picking up the flute or the whistle, like really it just helps you zone out, and it helps you think about something else for a while. So it's great for stress levels as well as good for the soul.
Yeah, because you just mentioned about how running business could be tiring and stressful, but so many people love run their own business. What do you think the reason behind it, and what's the reason for you to run in a business?
Well, I think running a business, first of all, running your own business is an amazing thing. And I'm always encouraging people to do it, take that leap. Absolutely. I think, for me, I, when I worked for the man, as it were, I didn't like the office politics. I did not like having this rigid kind of system of doing things and policies for everything. And my brain is a creative one. It doesn't deal with detail terribly well. So you can imagine sort of writing systems documents for IT projects and things, as it didn't sort of come naturally to me. So yeah, I think for me, I just desperately wanted to do something creative, something that was more me, something that it wasn't just a job that I fell into. It was something for me, a decision that I made, and I'm really, really glad I did it. I'm glad I made the leap. It was a good timing as well. When I left the bank, it was as you probably remember, back in 2007, there was a huge financial crash, and lots came off that. And our department kind of really. It wasn't affected by redundancies, but for the first, I think there was 4 or 5 rounds of redundancies all together, and our department was fine until the 4th round of redundancies. But by that point, I think everyone was very much looking forward to hopefully getting redundancy, But it was really good timing, because it was in it will have been the September when I sort of went to college for the first time and did that. And by time I'd started my own market stall and things like that, the rumours of redundancy started to become true. So it was a no-brainer for me to leave, to get my redundancy and give my business this, great start. And I sort of hit the ground running with it, really, and pleased to say it's still here.
So what do you do now? Because I know you got this flower business, and you do the social media marketing as well.
Yeah, so I run 3 businesses altogether. So I run Floral Quarter, which is the wedding florist business, and I also run the Content Quarter, which is where I basically help small business owners grow with coaching and online content. And it's very much a holistic approach rather than just one particular sort of I'll look after your social media kind of thing. It's because it's all connected. I think and this is why I enjoy the coaching side of it more than the actual sort of doing it for people. I would always encourage people to sort of learn how to do it themselves. And, so say if somebody just wants to, they need someone to do their social media for a little while, that's something I can absolutely do. But I much prefer kind of teaching people, and because I think, most of the time it's with things like this, it's because people don't understand them, or they don't understand how it can benefit them and their business. They haven't quite wrapped their heads around it. So it's very much a sort of, they just sort of go, oh, somebody else, please take care of it, and so that's where I come in, really. I love kind of motivating other people. I love encouraging them, and I love seeing them fly, and not just with that business. I think in general, I'm a great sort of trainer and motivator, and things like that. So I mean, whilst I'm a qualified digital marketer, I got that qualification so that I could kind of really, it could complement my experience as a business owner, really. So that when I was teaching people about social media or SEO or building websites or whatever it is, then I could have that actual qualification behind me to sort of to do that, if that makes sense. So it's a really good, the two complement each other well. 10 years of experience in business, and the qualification as well. The other one I run is an online shop, which it doesn't have the word quarter in the title at all. You'll be surprised to hear, like the other two businesses. But I think the other two are my big loves. I love my flowers and the creative side of it, and I love the content quarter. Where I help. Well, it's kind of making a difference, really. I love making a difference to people, and when someone comes back to me and says, oh wow, no one's ever explained it like that before. That makes so much sense now. Or I got a message off one of my group members earlier today saying, I know I don't comment so much, but I want you to know I appreciate all of your posts. I love your posts, and I've needed a lot of encouragement lately, so they've come in really handy, so that sort of thing, and that really means the world to me. It really does.
Yeah. So you mentioned before that you enjoy and love motivating other people and help. How do you motivate yourself?
Oof, yeah, that's always a tough one for anyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I guess doing something you love really helps as well. My problem isn't so much motivation; it's keeping myself on track. I think getting out of bed in the morning. Sometimes I'm not a morning person, so I need to motivate myself to do that. And but it's more of a it's a creative brain thing. I spoke about this in my group recently. Actually, it's you're very much sort of focused on, you start doing one thing. Say you've got a list of things to do that day. You start doing one thing and you get so into it, or you may go off on a tangent through that, and you actually don't get the other things done. So I really need to be like quite strict with myself with regards to that. There was a lady I interviewed recently who was an amazing business success. She's just fantastic. She started off a few years ago with nothing much to speak of. She started her business on a kitchen table basically a few years ago, and now it's a multi-million-pound business. And she's an author and speaker and all sorts of things now. And as part of her book, she wrote that you should have a routine in the morning, and she spoke about her routine. So she gets up at this time, and then she is very specific about her routine. She'll get up and she'll straight away she'll journal what she's thinking right there and then. Maybe there's a dream that she had or a thought that's come through her head since waking up or something like that. So but she has a really nice journal with, hers is like leather bound and a pen that, when you get a pen that you really like writing with, that really feels good. And she lights a scented candle, and then she does 10 minutes of exercise and then 5 minutes of stillness and meditation. And so she has this very rigid sort of routine in the morning, and it almost like it trains your brain to want to get up, So it doesn't, you don't have that dread as soon as you wake up. So yeah, that was really interesting to read. It's called, in fact, I've got it here. What is it? How to start your business on a kitchen table. So it's a really good book to read for any sort of aspiring business owner, definitely. But yeah, that's come in handy recently. I always think it's a great way to sort of get up in the morning and get yourself motivated. And because once I'm up and I'm awake and I'm going, I'm working, or I'm whatever it is I'm doing, then I'm great, I'm flying. But it's taking that initial step, really. So yeah, I guess that was a long way of answering your question.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. From kitchen table, in a few years, multimillionaire.
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah, she's a really interesting person to interview. You should try and interview her. But she started off a few years ago with her husband and a goat, and now she has. She ships out 4 tons of product a day. She has 70 goats. She employs, I think, 14 or 24 people, and she's flying. She's doing amazingly. But yeah, her book goes through that. But she's a very interesting person to speak to. So I'll have to pass you across her details.
Yeah. So what would you say is success to you? Because that was successful in a short period of time. And if I ask Vicky, when do you know when you're successful? How do you know?
Well, it's an interesting question, really. I think to know that, I personally have to set goals, and it's something that I always encourage my clients to do as well, is to set goals. But they don't just have to be financial goals, because it's not all about the money. If I just wanted to earn money, I could go out and do anything. I could stack shelves in Asda. I could, do, I don't know, whatever. I could still be working at the bank if all I wanted to do was earn money. But it's kind of the difference that it makes. So I guess, it's not just financially, obviously you need money to keep your business running to be able to help people, but the helping people side of it is huge for me. So like that compliment I got from that lady in my Facebook group earlier today, for example, like that would be a measure of my success. That's when something happens that makes you sort of think, what I am doing is working. That's fantastic. Because I think a lot of the time you assume things are landing on deaf ears, or you perhaps don't get the engagement on the Facebook group, or all sorts of things. Our mind tricks us with these things a lot of the time. But then something like that happens, and it makes you realize like this is actually working. This is making a difference, and I love it when people come back to me afterwards and say, Vicky, that was amazing. And say if I've done a Pinterest training session for people, for example, and that they'll not just leave with more knowledge about Pinterest, that they will that they'll feel motivated about their business again, because I've got quite a holistic approach, and they'll feel like buzzing about their own business again. And when they come back and say that, like, oh, Vicky, that was amazing, or if I've say following a session such as that, for example, and a couple of months later their Pinterest figures have gone sky high, that's like a really good feeling for me. So yeah, money's only a small part of it. So you can set financial goals. So you can say, oh, I can take a certain amount this year, and if you hit that, great. But it's not the only goal. Absolutely not. I think you have to have some sort of purpose behind what you do. It shouldn't, money shouldn't be your motivator, and it certainly isn't in my case. It's the impact you make on the world. So yeah, it's nice to sort of see things that happen like that make me realize I am making an impact, I guess. Yeah.
So what's your proudest achievement so far?
Well, gosh, so you're full of interesting questions, aren't you? I guess, yeah. I mean, well, I've just had my my 10th anniversary in business, so that was fantastic. That was a really big deal for me, because it's been through lots of ups and downs, and that's just natural. That'll happen in business. It happens to a lot of people. It happens to everyone who runs a business. It's not going to be all smelling of roses the whole time, and but to have sort of come through those things and learned from the highs and the lows, and still be here 10 years on, that was like a really big kind of marker for me. So yeah, I guess that was a huge moment. That was something I'm quite proud of, and in my working life, I suppose. Yeah, that's something I'm proud of. But yeah, there's all sorts of things. Like, I guess personal life. I suppose getting married a few years ago was a big one. It's and just kind of, yeah, gosh, all sorts of things really. It could be a long list.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned about the business ups and downs before. So what's your favorite failure? And what did you learn from it?
Oof,
the lesson you learned from it. Yeah.
I don't know if I had a favorite, but because it's funny to think of it as a favorite, isn't it? That's a very good way of phrasing the question. Now I can see why you do what you do. All sorts of things, really. I often sort of refer to, because I work a lot with sort of other small business owners. I often refer to things that I did when I was first starting out in business that I don't really, I look back on in horror, like pricing mistakes and things like that. So for example, there was, I think it was either my first or second bridal bouquet that I ever did, and not only did I not price it correctly, but I didn't even think about pricing it properly. I didn't think of it as a business owner. I was still very, very new to business at that point, and still thinking like a consumer. So I charged £35 for this bridal bouquet, and that's absolutely nothing. Absolutely not. I don't even charge. I charged like twice that for bridesmaids bouquets now. And granted, it's 10 years on, but I look back at that, and because she was only wanting, she says, "Oh, I like daisies and things like that," and my consumer brain went, "Oh, daisies will be cheap," and things like that, which of course it didn't end up being cheap at all. And I just said, "Oh, sort of £35, that'll." And I look back, when you wish you could go back and shake your previous self and say no. So I often sort of use that as an example when I'm talking about, having the confidence to sort of price, charge what you're worth and price properly, and think about it as a business person as opposed to a consumer. So yeah, that's a common one I use. So I don't know if I have a favorite, but there's a number of other things. You have sort of things happen to you over the years. Like certain customers or members of staff or things like that, and you're constantly learning in business. Even people who have been in business for a long time, there's always something new that comes along, and there's always things that change, and you've got to keep up with. And such as a pandemic, you've got to be able to sort of pivot and think on your feet, and so I love that aspect. Yeah,
it's like constantly learning, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Forever learning. Yeah. What is your favorite quote, Vicky?
Quote. That is another very good question. I'm always coming across quotes on Facebook and things like that. You're scrolling through and you'll see a motivational quote. there's one that always sort of springs to mind, and I know this because I was talking about it the other day to someone. There's one by Albert Einstein, and not a lot of people realize that it is by Albert Einstein, but he says everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, then it's going to believe it's, go through its whole life believing it's stupid, So I always love that, because I think, people's kind of circumstances and, that it dictate that they just haven't been taught a particular thing, or perhaps they're told, you're no good at this, so they end up believing that. A lot of people, I was interviewing someone the other day actually, and he was talking about money mindset, and he said something that I didn't realize, and which was that your money mindset is actually set by the time you're 3 years old. You hear parents saying things like, oh, we can't afford that, or oh, that costs too much, or that's really expensive, or it might be the opposite way. Whatever it is for you, you carry those beliefs with you throughout your whole life, and you have to sort of retrain your brain sometimes. So even though your circumstances have changed, maybe you earn your own money and you have a really good job, and you don't have to sort of worry about money. You might still carry that sort of belief with you, like, oh, that's too expensive, or oh, we can't afford that, or, so you pick these behaviors up quite early. So I think that I love that quote, because it says a lot about mindset to me. And if you tell somebody something enough, then they're probably, some of it's going to sink in, and they might start believing that. And I love to use that in a positive way, when I'm, even just in my daily life, excuse me, whether in business or personal life, whatever it is. And I like to sort of big people up a little bit, and sort of tell them, no, you actually can do this, and you can make this leap into business, or actually you are clever enough to do your website, or whatever it is. It's I just think, that quote sort of says a lot to me anyway. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I love that quote. Yeah. So let's think. You got 3 businesses, and this is horrible question, right?
Come on, then hit me.
If you have like 100% capacity for all of them, and then have to choose one, which one would it be?
Oh my goodness.
Which one's your most favorite?
I think what am I most? There's two. There's probably at least favorite. Well, not at least favorite. I think that probably sounds like a very negative way of putting it. But there's one I'm not as passionate about, and that's the online shop. As much as I love my online shop, it's kind of it's it doesn't kind of sing to me as much as the other ones. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So which ones like require your creativity more? Is it the wet and flowery one, or the content creation one?
Yeah, I guess in different ways, both actually are creative. I know you wouldn't think the other one was, but flower-wise, you really it's a visual creativity, and so I mean, even from being a little girl, we would go on nature walks, and I would just be able to, I would pick things from the hedgerows, or whatever we found, and I was able to just put those together and choose something because I knew it would look nice in the thing that I was making, and I would come home with little bouquets in my hand, and I do that now, and it's very very visual. Whereas the other business, where I do, I teach people about online content and help their businesses grow and things like that. There's a lot of creativity. I might write blogs or social media posts, or so there's a lot of writing kind of creativity in that, and And also, when I'm designing things, not a lot of, well, not everyone anyway, has got my eye for color. So if I was to create a website on Wix for someone, I would, have that idea, that eye for color. And I would, or if I'm creating a logo for someone, or whatever it is, I can sort of, I can just see how that's put together, and I think I probably take that for granted sometimes, because I have to remind myself that not everybody has that way of thinking. I'm sure that they have their own abilities, of course, but that's just, this is what just comes natural to me. So there's a lot of creativity in that as well, in a lot of ways. And like I sort of said, earlier, it's in everything I do. It's in my bones. So whatever I do, it's in a creative way.
Yeah. So when do you think you are the most creative? Morning, afternoon, or in the evening?
Oh, it's a good question. I probably
When
have
do
to
you
say
know you feel creative? Yeah.
yeah, afternoons is probably, yeah. I'm awake enough, but I'm not tired enough yet. So yeah, that's probably a good time. Yeah, sort of afternoon when I really get going. And yeah. I mean, sometimes these things hit you late at night. Of course, when you're trying to get to sleep and you think, oh my goodness, that would be a great idea for a social media post or something. Or, but I guess, yeah, if I had to pick one of those, then afternoons, I would say.
Fantastic. Tell me about the most creative project you've done, in your opinion.
Oof. Wow.
You've done so many, I'm sure, but which one you are the most proud of?
Gosh, I'm trying to. I'm not even sure there's one in particular, to be like you say. I've done so many over the years. From the flowers, making people's wedding flowers, or designing people's websites, or designing my own websites, all sorts of things. I guess, making flowers for myself, for personal reasons, whether it be my own wedding, or I made my own dad's casket spray and things like that, which was obviously the best casket spray ever, because you can't have a daughter as a florist and not have the best casket spray ever. So that was obviously very sad, but it's I did him proud, I like to think. It was a huge full-length thing with the most luxurious flower types, and it was a lot of very meaningful flower types in there. So things like, I used to bring him an orchid. He was ill for about 3 years, and I used to make sure he had a little orchid plant in his hospital rooms and things like that. So I put those in his casket spray, and little things like he had a favorite Billy Connolly joke that involved pineapples. I'll not bore you with it, but no, it has a swear word in it. I won't. So I made sure there was like, we have little ornamental pineapples that grow, that we use in bouquets and things like that. So I made sure some of those were in there. Pretty much every single flower in there was meaningful, and so yeah, I'd like to think that was a good creative endeavor, despite the sad occasion, of course.
Wow. Yeah, so what's your most favorite flower, just for you personally?
I guess I don't have a favorite as such, but I like to I just like when something catches my eye, so if I've got a few leftover flowers from a wedding or something like that, I'll usually make myself a little bunch to come home with. And I love arranging them at home, which probably seems mad that I've spent 3 days doing a wedding and then come home and do some more flowers, but it's kind of, it's playtime then, it's not work, it's creative, you bunch something together for yourself that looks amazing. I sort of mentioned earlier that I use a lot of garden roses, and kind of luxurious looking flowers and things like that. And I love putting lots of different sort of shapes and sizes and textures in my work as well. So so I love kind of combining things like that, and some lovely greenery and different types of flowers and things. So I guess it's more about the combination than a specific flower type. Whatever catches my creative eye that day.
Do people give you a flower? What your husband? It must be quite hard.
Bless him. Bless him. When we first got together, he did try. So yeah, he's bought me flowers 3 times in our relationship, I think, and 2 of those I made myself. He was very sneaky. He said he ordered a bunch of flowers. He told me they were for his mum, so I made her something that I thought was nice, and then I gave them to him, and then he gave them back to me. He says they're actually for you. So I thought it was a very clever way of doing it. And another time it was actually our first wedding anniversary. So he bless him, he obviously he couldn't get me to make those because then I would know. But we stayed at the same hotel as we did on the night of our wedding, and he did a lot of research beforehand, and kind of looked at what flower types were in the bouquet, and he asked some florist friends of mine, what are these called, what are those called, and that sort of thing. And he went to a local florist that near here in Gosforth, and he ordered those, so they were there in the hotel room waiting. So yeah, that was also a good move. I didn't mind that someone else made them. I think that was a good choice.
It's quite interesting. Okay, you make the flower, you make a bouquet, and then an evening or some way, like if someone gives that bouquet to you, would you recognize that you've arranged it?
Oh yeah, massively, yeah. Definitely. Definitely. I
even though you were like busy and then done like hundreds of flowers a day.
Yeah, I would know my own flowers, I think. Yeah, definitely. It's quite interesting, really. You'd be surprised how much memory you have for that sort of thing. So even remembering sort of my previous brides and grooms, if for example at Christmas time a groom came to me and they got married, I think was it the 30th? Yeah, they got married on the 30th of December the previous year, so 2019. So he came to me at the beginning of December and said, "Oh, can I order some anniversary flowers?" And for the 28th, he says, "Oh, do you want me to send you over some pictures?" I says, "No, it's okay. I can remember. I can remember exactly what went in it, even though it was a year beforehand." So I don't know. I guess it's because maybe the weddings are an important occasion, and you spend time getting to know these clients, and you build a rapport with them, and you remember, because you go through that creative process yourself of making something. You just know. You remember it goes in there. But something else, speaking of memories, actually, something that does bring back those memories with flowers is the scent. 100%. Your olfactory senses are one of the biggest memory triggers. So I had a certain type of garden rose in my wedding bouquet called White O'Hara, and every time I get them in to do someone's wedding with, I smell them, and it takes me straight back to a very specific moment in time. It was when I'd gotten my wedding flowers delivered, and I conditioned them. I took them out of the packets and I snipped the ends and all that, and I popped them in the water. And there was a very specific moment where I was stood there looking at this display of flowers, saying to myself, "Wow, like, these are my wedding flowers." And I remember the scent that was coming off them specifically. And so whenever I smell those roses now, it takes me back to that exact moment. So yeah, scent is a huge memory trigger as well. And I always encourage, other couples to have, you know, a nicely scented flower in their bouquet. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's quite interesting. Just smelling them roses and going back to that place.
Yeah, definitely. It brings back memories of people's wedding days, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's like, this conversation called I'mPossible conversation. So if I ask you, when you look back and then, or just realize, do you know what? I've made it. It's happening. I am possible. I can do it. Was there any moment like that?
Well, I guess
I can
my
see
10th
like
anniversary.
that flowers.
Yeah. I guess it's lots of little moments over the years. I mean, you know, my 10th anniversary in business was a big one, or and just, I don't know, you come across people who, you know, maybe say things, and they'll say something that makes you sort of think, oh, actually, yeah, I did really well. Or you know, the fact that I left a corporate world to run my own thing, you know, you hear people who perhaps are still working in that company and not enjoying their jobs still, and it sort of it definitely makes me think, like, yeah, I made the right decision, I made the right move, you know, well done me. So yeah.
Done me. Yeah. Yeah. So why do you think people need to share their stories more?
Well, I think how to put this, I guess, it's amazing how much everyone has in common, right? And you know, somebody's telling their story, and you know, I think as humans, we think we're on our own. We think that we're the only person thinking a certain thing or going through a certain situation or whatever it might be. But you know, when you hear other people talking, you can either relate to it, or you know, it perhaps brings something out in you. It makes you think about something, you know, it maybe sparks off an idea, or so I suppose, you know, to relate it back to your program, it makes them believe that they're possible. You know, so yeah, I guess you know, we're all connected. We've all, you know, gone through similar things, I guess, you know. So just being, you know, this conversation that you're running, this series of conversations is great, because you know, there's people out there that can relate to whoever's speaking, and you know, if I can sort of just inspire one person through listening to this to do something, to, you know, start their own business or pick up a musical instrument, or you know, make a flower arrangement, or whatever it is, then that's an amazing thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, if people want to connect you, and it's nearly 8 o'clock, so I would like to ask, if people want to connect you, where they can find you.
I suppose any one of my 3 business emails, I suppose. I'm always on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I know you air this on LinkedIn, so you know, you can catch up with me. You can see my name at the bottom of the screen there. Any one of my 3 businesses. So if you want flowers, you can come to the Floral Quarter. If you want business growth and coaching and online content help, then you can come to the Content Quarter. If you want to buy household plant pots and household items and scented candles and things, you can come to urbana.store. So yeah, there's a number of ways to get in contact with me. I'm often quite on Facebook, on Facebook quite a lot, rather. So yeah, feel free to catch up with me there, or connect with me on LinkedIn, or yeah, whatever's easiest for you.
Okay, thanks very much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So thank you for our viewers. And if you would like to connect Vicky, I'm going to add her contact details in our comment section. And also, if you would like to come and share your story, you're always welcome. And always remember, you inspire others just being you. So thank you. Bye.